Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Unbeaten heavyweight contender Jarrell Miller, he's turned up the heat on 4-0 prospect Joe Joyce, dismissing the Brit with authority in an Instagram live feed. I was actually on my lunch break at the time that Miller went live, so I was there happily jotting down some notes, taking down the quotes of Miller's savage assessment of Joyce, his ability, and what he needs to do to earn a shot at the Brooklyn native, or any top contender for that matter. So Miller, he also went on to torch Dillian Whyte. Eddie Hearn didn't escape his gaze, and he gave some insight into how he intends to maintain his weight and conditioning in the next while of his career. More on that later though. But first, let's get to this fresh and evolving beef. You've got to love a good little beef that sort of breaks out on the heavyweight scene. And these two, Joe Joyce, Jarrell Miller. Buckle in. Let's go. So how did this Miller-Joyce thing all start? Well, with all things at the moment, in this day and age, it was on social media. So the 32-year-old Brit, he tweeted to Jarrell Miller saying, "Yo, at Big Baby Miller, I know you're being avoided, so am I. I'll come to your backyard in Brooklyn. I'm just a 4-0 novice, exclamation point. Big Juggernaut versus Big Baby. Let's dance." But Jarrell Miller, the unbeaten Jarrell Miller, 21-0 with one draw, clearly not impressed. He fired back. "Lol, nice one, would love to smash your face. But you're going to have to wait your turn, Cabbage Patch Kid." And not content with that tweet, he followed up with another pretty much straight away. "I can see at Mr. David Hay is teaching you well, trying to get big fights without actually earning them. Lol, you look like a brown skin lurch from Adam's Family." "Get 10 fights first, you're not at Vasil Lomachenko. Another English muffin. Laughing my ass off." Well, the abbreviation of that. So Joyce, he wasn't satisfied, wasn't going to take that. He replied and responded to Miller saying, "Sounds like you're making excuses, big man. At Anthony Joshua and at Bronze Bomber are going to fight, so I can be your warm-up for the summer. Let's go to war for the fans. Hashtag the Juggernaut." So those were the tweets that played out on social media. But Miller, he was sitting somewhere, he was in a car somewhere in New York, he was bored, he was waiting for his son. He decides to go live on Instagram. And a boxer with a phone and some ambition these days, you never know what will happen. So while there might have only been about 15 to 20 people watching at any one time, I was one of them. But one of the things of note was the disproportionate number of comments that were rolling in about Joyce and Miller. And Miller, not impressed, he led off by saying, "Joe Joyce, sit his clumsy ass down." He then says that anyone who goes on to talk about Joe Joyce again, he's going to block them. But predictably, the Joyce questions, they kept coming, and the comments kept rolling in. So he was asked whether he can KO Joyce. He responded, "I know I can KO that fool." He also repeated that Joyce is a brown skin lurch from the Adams Family. Also saying, "Guy's a retard, bro, and definitely the worst thing since Wonder Bread, but without the wonder." So from all that, you can kind of get that Miller, he was in no mood to entertain the prospect of a fight, and he was hurling insults at the rate that he was inhaling meat patties that day. He'd made a mention that earlier in that stream that he'd eaten 15 meat patties.
What did he say?
I think he'd said they were like Haitian meat patties or something like that, but 15, that's quite a lot in itself. But in terms of the credibility of the call-out, Miller noted, "I was 15-0 calling people out. He's 4-0. Some of you English guys are backing that up. He's a retard."
All units, shots fired. One shot confirmed by the complainant.
Okay, so I'll cut in here with some thoughts before getting to the non-Joyce related stuff that Miller went on to say. First off, if you do want to generate some buzz in the division beyond a good win, it does seem to be a proven way is to call out or criticize one of the mouthpieces of the division, and Miller is one of those. And in this instance, Joyce riding the wave of that Commonwealth title win over Leroy Thomas, he has managed to gain a handy little boost in his profile by tweeting Miller, calling him out, name dropping him. It's free publicity, and Joyce probably better known now than he was before. Don't get me wrong, I really like this fight, but Joyce, he surely must know Miller is biding his time for a title shot. You'd look at someone like Joe Joyce, a dangerous 4-0 prospect, and you'd be like, well, where's the upside for me? Because Miller, he would be expected to win just because he's the more high-profile guy. But actually, it could be a relatively even fight. And I wouldn't like to sort of just make a call just yet how that would turn out. I mean, if the fight was to happen in a couple of years, I'd probably back Joyce. But in terms of right now, I don't know. I mean, Joyce, he's a good fighter. He is no cannon fodder prospect. He's not having a sort of 15-20 fight sort of warm up through the levels type thing. He's having a truncated prospect phase. And the brazen act of calling out a top 10 guy like Miller, it shows his intentions to mix it with the best sooner rather than later. And Miller in his tweet, he did make a good point. Joyce, what's he really done to yet warrant a fight with him? But in considering that statement, in the context of winning that Commonwealth strap over Leroy Thomas, you'd have to say, with that development getting to that title in 4 fights, he can't be far off making a run at a legit top 20 guy at least. So he might not be Lomachenko, but he's not exactly cannon fodder either. He's no joke. He's an Olympic silver medalist. He's been brought along quickly. And we've actually already seen the likes of Derek Chisora price himself out of a fight with Joe Joyce, asking for too much. And trainer Peter Fury, he's got no intention of putting his son Hughie Fury in with Joyce if Hughie beats Sam Sexton. And the backstory to that one is the winner of the English title, which Fury is fighting for, they will be mandated to face Joyce for the Commonwealth strap. So Chisora, he didn't want that work unless the paycheck was big, and Fury doesn't seem to want that work at all. And now we've got Jarrell Miller telling Joyce, earn your way to the top. Earn your way to a fight with someone like me. And given Joyce, big 6'6" guy, decent power, he's coming through pretty quickly, he may find it a bit hard to get the fights that he wants when he wants. And David Haye, his promoter, is probably going to have to overpay opponents. And even despite their best efforts, some of the opponents are probably not going to be that good. So we're probably still going to see him quite active, maybe not against the guys he'd like to be against, but he could easily be 10-0 by the end of this year, or somewhere around that. And in the context of his career and how quickly they want to bring him along, he might be ready for a big step-up fight by then. So if he was to make a similar call at 10-0, 12-0, something like that, the call-out may actually take on a different light because, right now to say that Miller is ducking, it's a little bit of a tough sell for me. But if Joyce was 10-0, 12-0, he was kicking ass, taking names, all that sort of thing, there'd be a bit more credibility to it. But Joyce, I'm sure he will get there, and he'll probably get there quicker than some people think. But in the end, what he's done here with the Jarrell Miller call-out, it's free promotion. It's great PR, free PR. It's whipped up a bit of a frenzy among boxing fans. And this call-out's been very good for Joyce overall. But no doubt annoying to Miller. And when you consider that fight, 4-0 prospect against a guy who's 21-0 on the verge of a title, it's all sort of upside for Joyce, but it's basically all downside for Miller. Joyce has no ranking. The payday's probably not going to be where Miller thinks he should be paid right now. And if he lost to Joyce, he would never hear it down. But if he beat Joyce, some people would say, well, it was a guy who was 4-0. What do you expect? So it's a bit of a lose-lose either way. Definitely high risk, low reward in some respects. But I must admit, the Lurch comment, it made me laugh in the live stream, as did some of the other one-liners, and there was definitely some acid in some of the insults. And in terms of whether Miller could actually KO Joyce, it's a good question. Miller, he's got some power, but he's not exactly a KO artist by any stretch. He generally has been getting stoppages in a lot of his fights, but it's not through one-punch concussive KO power, just generally grinding guys into the dust. And the other side of the coin of that, though, is, I would need to see Joe Joyce actually take a big shot to get a bit of a read on his durability, because he's looking big and strong and powerful at the moment. But some of the guys he's faced haven't been that great. He's only had the 4 fights, so it's a limited sort of sample to judge from. So the jury about this whole KO claim from Miller, it's definitely out, but I wouldn't discount it. But then again, the other question is, well, could Joyce KO Miller? Also a good question. But I do like the prospect of this fight, if it was ever made, because, 2 hulking guys, they both come forward, big, strong, throwing a lot of punches, a lot of volume there, a lot of heavy shots, heavy hands. That really would be a cracker of a fight. But in terms of the rest of the live stream, I'll just touch on that quickly. So Miller, he stated he's got no idea who he will be fighting next. But in relation to Dillian Whyte, because a question came up about would he fight Whyte, he said, give me 800k, I'll smash Dillian Whyte. I actually thought about that and thought, actually 800k? Surely that's a bargain, actually. You could make money off that fight between those two. And I think we can all agree that it would probably go down as one of the best trash-talking sort of feasts in terms of build-up in the history of heavyweight boxing, or modern-day heavyweight boxing at least. And Miller, he didn't let Eddie Hearn escape his gaze, throwing a few barbs his way. And, this is obviously off the back of finding out actually he's third in line, at least, to fight Anthony Joshua behind Alexander Povetkin and Deontay Wilder, and Wilder being the #1 target at the moment for a huge unification matchup for Undisputed. So Miller, he got another good one-liner about Hearn, saying, Eddie Hearn, he's a slick-talking English muffin in a suit. Got to give it to Miller. He does come up with some pithy little lines. And on the weight front, I'll just end the video with this. So Miller said, at the moment, and this is a scary prospect, he's eating whatever he wants right now. But he will start eating clean from about the 15th of May. And as he put it, he wants to keep his flat stomach. Make of that what you will. So as he's described, he's got another 5 or 6 days of being a fat bastard and eating whatever he wanted. That's what he said. But after that, he said he'd only be eating burgers once a week, he'd be drinking a gallon of water a day, and he'd be hitting the gym hard. We know Miller, he's in the gym a lot, training weights, he lifts some heavy weights. But he did reiterate that he feels good when he is at the heavier weight. Remember, he came in at 304 pounds for his most recent fight, and he fights better when he is heavier. Well, this is what he does believe. But he did drop in there that when he's not a fighter anymore, he does think he would be leaner than he currently is. Food for thought. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.